Today marks my first State of the Union address to you, a constitutional duty as old as our republic itself. President Washington began this tradition in 1790 after reminding the nation that the destiny of self-government and the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty is finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. For our friends in the press who place a high premium on accuracy, let me say, I did not actually hear George Washington say that.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, January the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the daily declaration for spiritual warfare and the Pledge of Allegiance and Star-Spangled Banner, we will have speaker controversy, Mark-Kaye, Matt-Gaetz, no free lunch, Jesse Waters, and Jinx, Chapter 27. All that and more when I get back. Thank you. And now the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare, Biblical Principles to Defeat the Devil for January the 3rd. Father, your Holy Spirit has illuminated your word to me and given me weapons of warfare that are filled with your power, which I am using daily to wage war against the enemy and to demolish strongholds. Amen. And that was the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare for December the 3rd.
Your hearts, face your parents, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and remove your hats for the national anthem of the United States of America.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets was bursting in yet proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the
Thank you. And now there's no free lunch.
When people who earn more than the average have their surplus, or the greater part of it, seized from them in taxes, and when people who earn less than average have the deficiency, or the greater part of it, turned over to them in handouts and doles, the production of all must sharply decline. For the energetic and able who lose their incentive to produce more than the average and slothful and unskilled lose their incentive to improve their condition. Henry Hazlitt. This binary economic truth that redistribution cuts at the incentive for the productive to be productive and the incentive for the non-productive to be productive is at the heart of a free and virtuous society. We deteriorate freedom when we make the productive less productive, and we deteriorate virtue when we incentivize non-productivity.
And that was There's No Free Lunch, 250 Economic Truths by David-Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. So I'm watching Varney and Company, and their first thing up was about the supposed. Everybody keeps saying it's a mess in the House of Representatives, and I say it's not a mess at all. Then we even had the serial cheater Newt Gingrich on complaining about it. But anyways. So they say that Kevin McCarthy he'd taken some kind of a pre-poll or whatever that showed 85% of the conference wanted him, and there's 14 holdouts that say, no, we're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy. First of all, in terms of the mechanics of this, the reason that they're in a mess is because they only have 222 members. If they'd had the red wave that they kept talking about, and they had 250, 260, then these 14 members would be insignificant, and we wouldn't even be talking about it. But the fact of the matter is that since it's close, 222 to 20, whatever it is that the Democrats have, every vote is vital. And this is just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the beginning. Every time there's a vote on a tough issue, you're going to have 7 to 10 to 15 Republicans that are simply going to hold out. And they're going to basically, it's like extortion. You're going to give me what I want, or I'm not going to vote, and your bill, or in this particular case, your speakership is going to go down to defeat. Now, why? How did this happen? How did we get here? Because it wasn't too long ago, a few years ago, that the Republicans had solid majorities in both the House and the Senate. What happened in the House was, in 2018, 55 Republicans threw a temper tantrum over the election of Donald Trump and retired, and effectively handed the gavel to Nancy Pelosi. Now, if they hadn't retired, then statistics show that 80% of those 55 would have been reelected, and we wouldn't be talking about having a bare majority. We would be talking about adding, the 2022 election would have simply added to an already substantial majority. So again, we would have the 250, 260, whatever it is, and these 14 individuals would be insignificant. They would have little or no power. So then, as far as Newt Gingrich is concerned, he chimes in and says, well, it's not 14 people against the speaker, it's 14 people against the 215 members of the caucus that say blah, blah, blah. Who cares what Newt Gingrich says? Newt Gingrich is the Bill Clinton of the Republican Party. He's a has-been. He's had nothing to say or do with the Republican Party. He doesn't raise money. He doesn't deliver votes. He's a guy that, again, he's the Bill Clinton of the Republican Party. His wife keeps his balls in a box, and she knows that if she doesn't do that, she's shrewd enough to know exactly how he operates, and that if she doesn't keep his balls in a locked box, he's going to be out screwing his secretary. That's all Newt Gingrich is about. He's never apologized to the American people, the people that, like me, that supported him back in 94, and then he ends up disappointing them and resigning in disgrace from the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives. So I don't pay any attention to anything Newt Gingrich says. I like his voice. He's very entertaining, but in terms of taking him seriously, forget it. And you should forget it as well. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Mark-Kaye talking about Donald Trump's interview with Breitbart. Lasts about a minute, maybe two.
Donald Trump did an interview with Breitbart, and every Republican should pay attention to it. Donald Trump believes that Republicans are in danger of messing up what's going to be one of the most important and easiest to win elections of our time. And in this interview with Breitbart, he did a couple of things. First of all, he laid out why he thinks so many Republicans lost easy to win races. He picks two issues, and he explains exactly why these people took the wrong side on the issue and why they're lining up to do it again to their political detriment. He called them Democrat traps, and he said the Republicans are going to fall into these traps over and over again. He outlines exactly how to win. He outlines exactly how to avoid losing, how to avoid the traps that the Democrats are setting, how to make sure that people believe that you're actually on their side, and how to be an electable conservative in what is a Democrat and liberal-run, really, media environment. Donald Trump.
And that was mark-kaye talking about his Donald Trump's interview with Breitbart. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Matt-Gaetz, who's a representative from the state of Florida, on the floor of the House, making a nomination for Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Order. Rise.
To nominate a candidate for Speaker of the House.
The gentleman is recognized.
Well, sometimes we have to do jobs that we don't really want to do. And sometimes we have to do jobs that we are called to do. And so, my colleagues, I rise to nominate the most talented, hardest working member of the Republican Conference, who just gave a speech with more vision than we have ever heard from the alternative. I'm nominating Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is humble, perhaps today, humble to a fault. Maybe the right person for the job of Speaker of the House isn't someone who wants it so bad. Maybe the right person for the job of Speaker of the House isn't someone who has sold shares of themselves for more than a decade to get it. Maybe Jim Jordan is the right person for Speaker of the House because he is not beholden to the lobbyists and special interests who have corrupted this place and corrupted this nation under the leadership of both Republicans and Democrats. Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person for Speaker of the House because he wouldn't fight us when we try to get a term limits bill on the floor. Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person because he wouldn't fight us when we try to put a balanced budget on the floor and vote for it. And maybe Jim Jordan is the right person because he would endorse the plan that was built by the Texas delegation to finally secure our border. Mr. Jordan said in his nomination that there are certain bills that we have to pass to fix the problem. The challenge is the alternative has been someone voting for the very bills that have caused these problems. Mr. Jordan says that we cannot accept legislation like the omnibus, and I fully agree. And if Jim Jordan were Speaker of the House, if he were the leader of the Republican team, we wouldn't have that circumstance choking the economy of our country, increasing inflation, and diminishing the prospects of a better life for our fellow Americans. And finally, Mr. Jordan said we must engage in rigorous oversight. Every one of my Republican colleagues knows that the person who can lead that oversight effort, who works on it every day, who has the skill and the talent and the will, is Jim Jordan. I'm nominating him, and I'm voting for him.
And that was Representative Matt-Gaetz from Florida nominating Jim Jordan for Speaker of the House. And that happened earlier today. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, 6 minutes of Jesse Waters asking and hopefully answering the question, did drug money buy the Democrats the Senate?
Borrowing money always has its risks. If you ask for too much, people probably think you've gone broke. And if you take too long to pay it all back, you'll be lucky if anybody ever lends you a dime again. And if you borrow money from the wrong people, you could get whacked.
You were like a brother to me. To all of us. I gotta sit down. I feel like I can't stand. Is that okay, Tony? Did I sit?
No one ever wants to meet a mobster. Some people would feel safer in prison than out on the street. People like Bernie Madoff, no relation to Minnie Madoff, we think, who lost $65 billion of other people's money in a Ponzi scheme. And it wasn't just Joe Schmo's money that Bernie stole. A new Netflix documentary says Bernie Madoff was taking millions of dollars in from criminals, everybody from drug cartels to Russian mobsters. And when they all came knocking on Bernie's door to have it back, he didn't have it. Instead of paying up, the documentary says Madoff pled guilty to a 150-year prison sentence so he wouldn't get whacked. Remember, Madoff just confessed, said, I did it, said, send me away. If Madoff, for years, was able to get away with taking in mob money, drug money, right under the nose of the feds, just imagine what's going on in crypto. The currency notorious with mobsters, sex traffickers, and hackers. Warren Buffett's right-hand man calls it rat poison.
Digital currency that's out there that people say, oh, it might be the next big thing. What do you think?
I think it's rat poison. Put him down as undecided.
But the Democratic Party must love them some rat poison because Sam Minnie Madoff took millions in rat poison and fed it to Joe Biden. Did drug money buy the Democrats the Senate? Well, just look for yourself. $41 million right into the Democrats' dirty war chest. Where'd the stolen crypto money come from? Well, if we're learning anything from Bernie Madoff's story, it's that this is a lot of dirty stolen money, and people are dying over it. In the past few months, there's been a slew of crypto executives dropping dead. Yeah. One died in his sleep. Another died from a helicopter crash. And the other one died drowning in Puerto Rico. Is this all a coincidence? Well, we don't know. But we do know if Minnie's investors were cartels and mobsters, Minnie's in some trouble. And so are all the other crypto brokers who lost the mob's money. Is Minnie worried? Nah. Minnie's vegan. More worried about his next lunch. And Minnie might be the luckiest man alive. I mean, after a judge in New York just ruled that polyamorous relationships, like threesomes, foursomes, and fivesomes, are entitled to similar protections as traditional marriages. So basically, Minnie's harem was just like him having a wife. And wives can't testify against their husbands, right? Which means Minnie's main squeeze might not be able to put the squeeze on him after all. Minnie's main squeeze might not be able to sing. Remember, she's the one Minnie blamed for blowing up the fund. So today, he did what Madoff didn't do and pled not guilty in court. Where he thought he was going to get some New York Times treatment, a big round of applause.
Thank you so very, very much. Thank you.
But Minnie actually got the Madoff treatment and just got pushed around by the media.
Come on, guys. I gotta get in.
Even showed up to court with a book bag like it's the first day of school. What's in the book bag, Minnie? Is it full of amphetamine? Cash? Or one of those cucumbers you like to chew on? Well, we don't know, but to us, it's a little weird that Minnie left the courthouse without the book bag. So where'd the book bag go, Minnie? Did someone get bribed with a book bag full of cash? You're not going to believe who the judge overseeing the Minnie Madoff case is. You're not going to believe it. Judge Lewis Kaplan, who happens to be a Bill Clinton appointee, who presided over the Kevin Spacey trial, where he was acquitted, is presiding over a Trump sexual assault case and was just recently presiding over the Prince Andrew sex abuse case that was suddenly settled earlier this year. That is quite the pedigree. No wonder Minnie's been flying around on first class with no worries. But Minnie should watch out. The crypto world's no place for a skinny fat vegan kid with frizzy hair. Crypto's where criminals, mobsters, and cartels park the cash. And Democrats knew this when they took in the $41 million of it from the Bahamas, the world's most famous tax haven. Are you surprised? The Bidens gobbled up dirty cash from overseas. This isn't anything new. The Bidens have been taking millions in from the Chi-Coms, from the dark corners of Ukraine. Money was coming in from Kazakhstan, Romania, from Russian billionaires. Come on. The Bidens love dirty money. So when criminals housed dirty cash with Minnie Madoff and Minnie Madoff just handed it to Joe didn't even blink. We're looking at a campaign finance scandal like you wouldn't believe. Let's see who has the guts to touch it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
So that was Jesse Waters asking the question, did drug money buy the Dems the Senate? And Minnie Madoff is Sam Bankman-Fried. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now 7 minutes of Chapter 27 from Jinx.
Chapter 27. It was a year and a half before Nikita Khrushchev, addressing the 20th Congress of the Communist Party, would coin the phrase the cult of personality to describe one of the lesser sins of Joseph Stalin. But well before the phrase was formulated, its coils embraced the minds of Soviet leaders, even though they went to extravagant lengths to conceal this. More time was given to the factor of precedence than at the court of the Sun King, and almost as much time to concealing this concern. So that when the regular Thursday morning meeting of the Politburo convened early in October, Georgy Malyenkov, whose post was that of first secretary, and who was therefore the senior member of the body, didn't stride into the chamber like Stalin, approaching the chairman's seat as if he had grown up sitting on it. Rather, he approached it, so to speak, sideways, as if always in need of orientation in the matter of which was his seat. And his companion members of the Politburo crowded at either side, not noticeably behind him, confirming, if by no means as stridently as they had with Stalin, their acceptance of their subordination. He approached the chair, which an aide drew back to permit him comfortably to sit, and found himself facing the 9 other members of the Presidium of the Party Central Committee, generally referred to as the Politburo. He greeted them amiably, fraternally, and told them they all knew that there was one major question on the agenda, namely, how should the Soviet Union react in the matter of the scheduled recognition by the Western powers of the sovereignty of the state of West Germany. As they all knew, he said, looking away from Lavrentiy Beria, who was seated directly opposite, he had issued invitations to the principal Western powers to a summit meeting to consider the implications of the planned diplomatic step. But although there were encouraging signs, he could not now report that his diplomatic initiative had worked. Had worked, that is, in such a way as to give the Soviet Union the opportunity to use its great resources to stall the German démarche planned by the Western powers. He was interrupted. It was Beria. My dear Georgy Maximilianovich, you must understand that there is only a single way in which to deal with the West in this matter, and moreover we have the advantage here of its being singularly plausible. If they exercise the power to declare West Germany a sovereign state, we quickly and instantly retaliate by declaring East Germany a sovereign state. We then declare that it is up to East Germany to decide the status of Berlin. Ulbricht instantly announces that immediately on the formal recognition of East Germany, his government will incorporate Berlin as a part of its territory. And that means, Beria leaned back triumphant, that means, gentlemen, that the same day President Eisenhower signs the diplomatic instrument recognizing the sovereign state of the German Federal Republic, we shall sign a complementary instrument declaring the Democratic Republic of Germany an independent state. And that same afternoon, Herr Ulbricht will sign an instrument declaring that Berlin, as a part of East Germany, is hereinafter under the political domination of the government of the Democratic Republic of Germany. Beria all but stood at this moment, as though promulgating his great geopolitical coup to a huge admiring throng. Instead, he got from Malyenkov, "But Lavrentiy Pavlovich, you are aware that the West has frequently reiterated rights of conquest in the matter of Berlin, denying to any single co-liberator the right to dispose of the area without the agreement of the others." Beria laughed. His laugh was a blend of truculence and condescension. I am aware, Georgy Maximilianovich, of the legal wiles by which the imperialist powers further their designs. We paid no attention to those when the time came to face up to their objections over our understanding of the Yalta Treaty, at which point our great comrade Joseph Stalin, he paused here, as if invoking a moment's reverence in memory of his mentor, waived the little legal points and kept his eye on the main business. Our main business in Germany, gentlemen, is to incorporate Berlin, which is a seedbed of bourgeois poison in our system. Nikita Khrushchev intervened. But listen, Lavrenti Pavlovich, even if it is true that you are correct about what should ultimately be done on the Berlin question, it is not a position we can take now unless we are prepared to counter the probable response of the West, which would be military. There was whispering about the long table, much of it animated. Berya broke in. I answer you in this way, Nikita Sergeyevich. In the first place, it is doubtful that the West would mobilize the will to fight for Berlin. In the second place, it is totally unlikely that they would resort to nuclear force. And in the third place, if they do not, our own tactical preponderance on the ground is more than sufficient to deal with the puny NATO forces. Marshal Voroshilov at this point intervened. He said, Comrade Berya, I would not dispute that the Soviet forces would triumph, but surely it is wrong to designate as puny a NATO ground force west of Berlin that consists of 48 active divisions, over 500 tanks, and one-half again as many bombers as we command. To overcome such a force would require a major protracted effort. So who is against a major effort in behalf of socialism? Berya asked. He snapped his fingers at an aide sitting behind him. The aide rose, presented him with a cigar, and lit a match under it. Berya puffed. The point is, surely, he addressed himself to Malyenkov, that if we permit the West to get away with this rape of West Germany, there is no knowing where they will stop. I say stop them now. There was muted applause from 3 or 4 members of the assembly. Malyenkov looked pleadingly at Bulganian. The marshal rose and spoke. He said that these were difficult times, that the paramount need was for unity, that nothing could so greatly jeopardize the great Soviet endeavor as to get into a war at a moment when the Soviet Union was not really prepared for war. Under the circumstances, he concluded, sitting down, as a marshal of the Soviet Union whose patriotism has been extensively tested, I would vote in favor of Comrade Malyenkov's plan and resist the temptation to use force over Berlin. Malyenkov tormented himself, wondering whether to take a vote. During the first few self-conscious months, when they met without Stalin, they made it almost a sacramental point to take a vote, subtly to distinguish between the ways of the new order of the Soviet Union and the old. But gradually, the habit of a single dominance had made the vote less and less frequent, and now Malyenkov thought was hardly the moment to revive the moribund tradition. Accordingly, after an hour's discussion, during which almost everyone contributed views on the question, he said that as chairman of the Council of Ministers, he had been very glad to have the invaluable advice of his invaluable colleagues, which advice he would take thoroughly into account before deciding on a course of action. Malyenkov paused. He sensed that if there was to be mutiny, this would be the moment for it. But Berya sat still, puffing on his cigar and making notes. Malyenkov involuntarily shivered at the thought of the use those notes might one day be put to. He called the meeting to an end, quickly involved himself in conversation with Bulganian, and walked out of the velvet-curtained room feigning a self-confidence he did not feel. He sensed that Berya would make his move soon. It was at 5 that morning, Eastern Daylight Time, that the director was awakened by Rufus with the news of Blackford Oaks' meeting with Bolkin. On hearing it, he drew a deep breath. He had been many years in the intelligence system. He had never before come across hijinks at such a level.
And that was Chapter 27 of Hijinks by William F. Buckley, Jr. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. Until next time, remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.